Hi, this is Mr. Heineman from Evergreen High School, and this is for my Microsoft Imagine Academy classes. This is Excel 2013 Core, Lesson 2. So in this exercise, we're going to name ranges of cells so that we can use those ranges in formulas and things. So we're going to select all these revenues here, go up here to Formulas, click on Define Name, and if there's a label kind of associated with that, it will give you a default name. In this case, it gave us revenues. So we're going to go ahead and just leave that as is and click OK. We're also going to select total expenses and define the name there. And in this case, it puts an underscore in between because there can't be any spaces in names of ranges. But we'll just leave that name as is also. Click OK. And then same thing with net income. It'll say net underscore income. And we'll click OK. So now that we have those three named ranges, we can go to our summary sheet. And for 2012, we can use them in the formula. So I can hit equals, and then use in formula, we'll select revenues here. Just hit enter. Same thing with expenses, although you can just click total expenses and it'll automatically add the equal sign there for you. So either way, I'll add net income, hit enter, and then I'm going to select all three of these, and we're going to format using, of course, dollars. I'm going to make it larger so I can actually see them, and then we're also going to cut down on decimal places, because usually when you have numbers this big, they don't use decimal places. So we just have it as whole dollar amounts. And that's it for this one. We can save and move on. So in this exercise, we're going to use sorting and filtering to be able to find specific data in our worksheet. So sorting is when we put the data in some order. So I'm going to select my whole table, and then I'm going to go up here to data and click on sort, and it pops up the sort dialog. And in the sort dialog, because I have this checkbox selected where it says my data has headers, it will use the names across the top of the table as the sort by columns. So that way I can select based on those descriptors. So in this case, I'm going to select country, continent, and typically we'll sort those from A to Z. So when I click OK, it resorts them in order of the country or continent listed. I can do that again, and we'll resort it this time by skills needed. And again, we'll do A to Z because it makes sense. So we'll select that, and we see it's now sorted based on the skills needed. We can also use multi-level sort. So I'm going to go back and reset country and continent, and then I'm going to add another level here that's going to be skills needed. So it'll always say sort by and then by after that. So it'll sort first by country and continent, and then within that it'll sort by skills needed. So when I click OK, if we look here at Canada in particular, of course we're sorted A to Z on the country continent, but then within each country it's sorted by the skills needed. So that way we can have multiple levels of sort if we want to, if we have a need for putting things in order multiple ways. So we can also filter out data, which means we can remove, at least visually remove, certain rows of data that we don't need. So in this case, because we have the whole thing selected, we're going to click and set a filter, and we see these little drop downs appear for each column. And now that we have those drop downs, I can unselect everything else. And then we're going to use filtering to filter out the skills needed. And what we can do is we're going to filter out most everything. So I'm going to click the select all to deselect everything, and then I'm only going to select hiking, hiking/historic, and hiking/climbing. Okay. So when I click OK, the only rows that are going to show are ones that have either hiking, hiking/historic, or hiking/climbing. And then I'm also going to sort by the minimum skill level, and I can do that now with these drop downs. I can just sort this from largest to smallest. And now everything's sorted from the based on the minimum skill level. And of course, it only includes certain skills needed. So now that we've got that, we're ready to save and move on. In this exercise, we're going to format data as a table. So I'm going to select A4 and click Format as Table, and I'm going to select this table design here. Now it assumes that anywhere there's information in a cell that it wants to use that for the table, I'm going to reselect A3 through D15. So that's the actual data I want in my table. And I'm going to select the My Table Has Headers checkbox because the student name, part 1, part 2, part 3 are all headers, or headings for this table. So when I click OK, it formats my table, and then it opens a Table Tools tab for me. And in this Design tab, I can add a total row by just clicking on the Total Row checkbox, and automatically adds a total row. Since we're in a table, I can also select a total that I want to have. So in this case, I want to use sum as the total for both of these columns. So I just, in the drop down, select sum, and it automatically does that. To add a new column, if I just start typing, so in this case I can type total, and I hit enter, it automatically adds it to my table, formats it, and then I can use the drop down, but really I just need to add a sum. So we're going to do equals sum, and I'm going to sum these three. And when I finish that, it automatically adds all of the sums for all of the students. Okay, which is what can make a table so powerful, is that you can do little things and it can change it for the entire table. Add a sum to that column. And then the last thing we're going to do is sort these by the highest score to the lowest score. So I can click on data, go to sort. I don't have to select the table's automatically selected. It knows I have headers. I just want to sort by total, and we're going largest to smallest. You could also simply click on here and sort largest to smallest. That's a shortcut. Both of them will work. Doesn't matter which one you do. Last thing, I'm going to add a row in between by clicking on the whole row, right-clicking, and adding it and inserting a blank row. That way there's like some extra space there to separate the table from the other data. So in this first creative application, we're going to work with data tables. So the first thing I'm going to do is get a data table by selecting my data, A2 through D20, and formatting it as a table. And my table does have headers. We're going to add a total row. Then I'm going to add one invoice in here. So, and when we add this invoice for $426, it'll update my total, and then I can do things like with the table, I can filter out just Red Cross supplies so I can see what those totals are and what that total is. But it might be easier to see all of the vendors at the same time. So what I'm going to do is we'll reselect this. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to convert this to a normal range of cells, because in order to do that, in order to see all the subtotals, we're going to have to do that. So now I'm going to select my data, go up here to data, we're going to sort this by vendor, and then we can subtotal. and we're going to subtotal by vendor, or at each change in vendor, I should say, and then we'll add the subtotal to the amount here. So now when I click OK, there it is. And if I collapse all these, I can just see those subtotals if I want. And I can also quickly jump to those by clicking these levels here, 1, 2, 3. So third level would be individual ones. Second level is all my subtotals. First level is just the grand total. So that's about it for this one, and you can move on to the next. So in this final creative application, we're going to use some of the tools that we've learned how to use to see some things. So for instance, we are going to look at this set of data. We're going to find the largest revenue of for each food item by each operator, the total revenue for each month for each food item, the total revenue for each food item for each operator, and then which month had the highest sales for each food item. And then whatever we use, we're going to have separate sheets for those different tools. So on this sheet, let's take a look at the largest revenue for each food item by each operator. To do that, we're going to use filters. So I'm going to type in filters there, and I'm going to go to data and apply the filters. And what we're going to do is we can apply a filter for each operator. So I can deselect all and then just select Jim, for instance, as one operator. And we can see if we order these from smallest to largest or largest to smallest, we can see that what his highest for regular dogs, and then for jumbo dogs, and so on and so forth. And we could do that for each one to show the total for each one. And we could do that for the other operators as well, individually, one at a time. I'm not going to show you all of that, but know that that's what you can do with filters. So I'm going to go ahead and unselect the filters right now because we're going to move on to the other parts. And I'm going to actually copy this sheet. So move or copy, move to the end, create a copy, and click OK. And now that I have a second copy of this one, we're going to use subtotals, because I want to know total revenues for each food item and which one had the highest sales for each food item. We can do that with the same subtotaling. So let's do this one first, the total revenue of each food item for each operator, which means what we're going to do is we're going to take this entire table here, and we are going to first sort it by operator. And now that we're sorted by operator, we will subtotal by operator, so at each change in operator, and then we're going to select all of the food items that we have. And then when we click OK, it will give us our subtotals that we can find by clicking on the second level. So third level is everything. Second level here is the totals for each operator, and I can make this larger to see. So these are the totals for each operator, and of course grand totals at the bottom. So we can see what the total is for each person. We can also resort, and when we resort, what's going to happen is we're going to actually take away our subtotaling. That's what this message is saying, that it's going to remove the subtotals and then sorts. So now that we're organized by month, we can look at these other two, the total revenue for each month and which month had the highest sales for each food item. So I'm going to reselect all my data again, click on subtotal, and this time we're going to change change the change at each change in month, or change that to month, I should say. And now when I click OK, I'm subtotaled by month, and I click my second level, and here we are. Subtotals by month. I can also see which one has the highest by sorting this. So I have this selected at subtotals. I can sort by whatever column and sort largest to smallest, so I can see the totals. So I can sort the individual subtotals. I just have to make sure I'm clicked on the second level of subtotals before I do that. If I go to the third level and do that, it will want to sort everything, so it won't sort the actual groups. It'll just sort everything. If you want to sort the groups, you go to level 2, you can sort the groups, and then we could go back and sort based on whichever one we wanted, so that we could see the highest one for each month, or which month had the highest total. So that's it for this lesson. So I'll see you next time.